As a self-proclaimed Halo expert, as in, I've played a fair chunk of the games, except for the bad ones, because I refuse to buy an Xbox One, and Infinite sets my computer on fire. And since I'm the world's leading expert in the field of Halology, I've compiled the official ranking of all the main Halo entries. I will do a more in-depth look at some of the games at some point, but I just thought it'd be fun to rank which ones I like best. If you want to see a full video on any of them, let me know so I can get on that in like 6 months when I get around to making another video. Obviously, we have to start with the classic, Halo Combat Evolved, the game that revolutionized first-person shooters, started a multi-billion-dollar franchise, and convinced people to actually buy an Xbox. Combat Evolved is the gold standard for Halo games and set a high bar for every other game to surpass. In its favour, we have an insanely good campaign, setting up some of the best antagonists in gaming history, incredibly satisfying gameplay with one of the most iconic multiplayer game modes of all time. There are two types of people, those who've spent 100 hours in Blood Gulch, and fucking liars. Then there is the music. There is a reason people sing the Halo theme in bathrooms, it just goes that hard. So with all that down, Combat Evolved is a top tier game, and since I've nothing to compare it to yet, it gets spot number 1. Halo 2 takes everything Combat Evolved did and cranks it up to 11. The perfect example of this is the theme music. It's literally just the original theme, but with an epic guitar solo over the top, and that's what this game was. These graphics are the visual equivalent of a guitar solo. Halo 2 looks so much better than the original, and Combat Evolved wasn't even a bad looking game. It amazes me how much they managed to squeeze out of the game. It is perfection made playable. The game also improves on the gameplay. Dual wielding was the best addition to Halo ever, and I cry every time I remember that it was removed. And the story was an amazing continuation of the events of the original. The Gravemind is an amazing villain, and the better exploration of things from the Covenant's point of view was really cool too. At its core, Halo 2 is the same as Combat Evolved with a hell of a lot more polish. Unless you look underneath, I've heard horror stories about the duct tape patch job that is this game's code. So because of that, Halo 2 takes the top spot, and Combat Evolved is knocked down to number 2. I'm gonna be put in front of a firing squad for this one, but Halo 3 isn't my favourite. Don't get me wrong, it's a really good game, but it just never hit quite as hard as the first two did for me. The game looks really good, and the graphics still hold up. The campaign was amazing, and I really loved it, but the place it fell short for me was the multiplayer. I understand why so many loved the multiplayer, but it was the only one that I found myself constantly getting frustrated by. It's just in things like the weapon balancing that makes precision weapons much more powerful than others. I understand that they reward skill, but as an assault rifle fan, it just doesn't work for me. It probably also just has a lot to do with the fact that I'm bad at the game, and Halo 3 is the one that all the people who are good at the game still play. But still, it's a really good game, and I understand why it's so beloved, but it just doesn't resonate with me, so I'm putting it in the third spot below Combat Evolved. Something tells me I'm gonna regret doing that. Most of my feelings about Halo 3 also apply here. Again, it's a really good story, but the gameplay just wasn't as good as the first two games. It probably isn't helping ODST's case that this was the one of the few that I never played until recently, so it doesn't get those sweet nostalgia points. Though I don't think I'm in as much danger for not being massively into this one, as I don't see the game talked about as much. But anyway, same feelings as Halo 3, except I'll rank ODST slightly lower as you don't get to play as a Spartan. And we're back with another masterpiece of art. Halo Reach has everything you could want from a game. Great gameplay, a compelling story, and what's this? You can play as your own custom Spartan in the campaign? Do I even have to explain how cool it is? Because look, that's me, right there. I'm in a cutscene. And not only do you get to customize your Spartan, Noble 6 is one of the coolest characters in the series, right up there with Sergeant Johnson. Well, there is a case to be made that Noble 6 is even cooler than the Chief himself. But I'm not going to get into that because I'd rather not be shot a second time. The multiplayer I think was tweaked just enough from Halo 3 to make me love it once again. The weapon balancing issues that were my main problems with Halo 3 were fixed, but the core gameplay is close enough to Halo 3 that if you enjoyed it, you can still get behind Reach. Although this is the game I've seen the most debate on whether it was good or not, I feel it's very hit or miss for most people. You either love it or you hate it, and there's no in between. I have to give the number 2 spot to Reach because despite everything I love about the game, Halo 2 just squeaks ahead because Reach doesn't have dual wielding. Halo 4 is pretty much the opposite of Halo 3 to me. It has amazing gameplay, but the story is just kind of meh. I really like the fast-paced gameplay, so the multiplayer is top tier for me, and I'm not only saying that because Halo 4 is one of the games I'm better at. I feel like the gameplay is closer to Combat Evolved than Halo 2, which I like. Also, being able to sprint all the time is a welcome addition, but I can't get past the campaign. It's probably the worst story in any Halo game. Though that's a pretty low bar since we were 5 for 5 in the good stories department. But still, the first Halo game without a good story is a sad achievement. Also the art style, sure it looks really cool, but it's not Halo. I get that 343 wanted to make their game stand out, but you can't just take a beloved game series and start making big changes. Even when they changed it up a bit for Reach, it didn't look out of place, and they did it in a spin-off. So basically, the game is good, but it doesn't feel Halo-y enough, and because of that, it gets last place. Before we wrap this up, I'm just going to quickly move Halo 5 and Infinite into the bin so we can pretend those don't exist. And there we go! That's our finished Halo 5 ranking list. And remember, guys, this is 100% official, unless you don't agree with me. Then it's just my opinion, so you aren't allowed to disagree with me.